as doctor. Phillips strolled along the riverbank with his faithful dog at his side. He was jolted by an unexpected sight. A coffin had been deposited by the river's current, lying eerily on the sand. His heart raced as he approached and gently lifted the lid, his disbelief mounting as he peered inside. "Well done, everyone, doctor." Phillips spoke with a tone laden with exhaustion to the medics who had hastened to assist him. "You have my heartfelt congratulations. The procedure was a triumph once again." Arthur Phillips, renowned as the city's finest cardiologist, had defied the cold grasp of death, rescuing yet another child from its relentless hold. As he emerged from the operating theater, he wiped beads of perspiration from his forehead, reflecting on the grueling, unyielding 5-hour battle he had just endured. If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. The anxious father, Major Lloyd, his face ashen and his lips quivering with a mixture of fear and hope, rushed towards Dr. Phillips. His eyes were filled with a desperate plea, silently begging for reassurance. "How is my daughter, Mr.?" Lloyd implored, his voice breaking under the weight of his anguish. "Just tell me that everything will be all right." "Mr." Lloyd, try to remain calm, Arthur urged with a gentle firmness. "Your daughter is going to have a full and healthy life. She has come through admirably. Please don't weep, you are a man of valor. Here, let me offer you a small consolation." With a sympathetic smile, Arthur poured a glass of brandy for the distressed father, attempting to soothe the raw edge of his despair. "What about you, Mr.?" Lloyd inquired, his gaze shifting from the glass to Arthur. "I can't indulge. I'm still on duty," Arthur replied with a weary grin. "But you, on the other hand, are free to take a moment for yourself. It's no small feat to stay alert and focused for an entire day. So head home and rest. You're of no further use to me here. Visit your daughter tomorrow. I'll ensure you get half an hour with her." "Dr. Phillips, I can't express how profoundly grateful I am. Besides my daughter, she is my only family. My wife passed away during childbirth." Arthur's expression softened with empathy. "Yes, Mr. Lloyd, I understand the weight of your gratitude. It reminds me of my loss. My wife, she too left this world." "Is that so?" Major Lloyd asked, his tone turning gentle with sympathy. "How long ago did you lose her?" 2 years now," Arthur replied, his voice tinged with sorrow. "And curiously enough, she succumbed to a heart condition. Despite my expertise as a cardiologist, it was a congenital defect, one we had been advised against by doctors. But she was resolute in her desire to bring our child into the world, and thus she gradually weakened, her health declining year after year. This year I had to send our son to school without her. Such is the way of things." The air was heavy with unspoken grief and shared understanding as the two men faced their intertwined sorrows, finding solace in the compassion they extended to one another. United by their shared sorrow, the two men embraced each other in a heartfelt, warm hug. "Mr. Lloyd, visibly uplifted by the relief that came with knowing his daughter was safe, walked towards the exit with renewed vigor. Meanwhile, Dr. Arthur Phillips headed to the intensive care unit to check on the young girl who had just undergone surgery. There was still much work awaiting him, as the day was far from over. As the foremost cardiologist at the regional clinical hospital, his schedule was perpetually brimming with appointments. The demand for his expertise was overwhelming. Everyone sought to consult Dr. Phillips. A colleague, driven by a mix of envy and curiosity, had once posed a question to Arthur: "Why haven't you moved to a private clinic? There's a tremendous demand for your services, and the financial offers are substantial." Arthur responded with a tone of dry resolve: "So I'm to treat only the affluent and leave the ordinary children behind? What happens to them? You're the one who sends all the complex cases to me. I believe my answer is clear." Since that conversation, such discussions were avoided, and the heads of private hospitals gradually ceased their overtures. At lunchtime, Arthur decided to step outside for some fresh air and to dine at a modest cafe nearby. "Hello, Dr. Phillips. It's wonderful to see you," greeted Caleb, the young administrator and the cafe owner's son who had been a recent patient of Arthur's. "Hello, Caleb. How's your health?" Arthur asked out of habit, his tone imbued with genuine concern. "Feeling fantastic. I've taken up diving," Caleb responded with evident pride. "That's excellent to hear, but don't overexert yourself. I'll have the dish of the day," Arthur said with a hint of cheerfulness, rubbing his hands together in anticipation. "I'm ravenous. It's been a taxing day." "Consider it done," Caleb responded energetically. The dish of the day turned out to be a delectable serving of baked tender beef with creamy mashed potatoes, all smothered in a zesty tomato sauce. Arthur savored every bite, and his exhaustion seemed to melt away with each mouthful. When he asked for the check, Caleb greeted him with a warm smile, saying, "Your bill has already been taken care of." Arthur's voice was tinged with polite resistance. "Well, I can't accept this." "But I insist," Caleb replied earnestly. "It's the least I can do. You didn't charge my father when you treated me." Arthur shook his head gently. "Our hospital is free, and I never accept payment from children. Thank you for the meal, Caleb, but let's agree this is the last time. It makes me uncomfortable." All right, Caleb agreed with a smile. "Just this once more. We're always delighted to see you." After picking up a sandwich for his dinner, Arthur was about to cross the street when he noticed something peculiar. A scruffy, unkempt dog stood patiently at the crosswalk. As the light turned green, the dog eagerly trotted across and took its place by the cafe entrance, standing on its hind legs and begging for food. Arthur was intrigued by the sight of this forlorn creature, clearly homeless and in need. The kind-hearted dog stood steadfast, its presence unnoticed by the busy passers-by who hurried along with their lives. Eventually, the weary animal lay down at the entrance, whimpering softly. "Would you like some food, little one?" Arthur said, unable to ignore the starving dog. "My wife always wished for a dog, but we never had one. Here, enjoy this." Arthur handed the sandwich to the dog. Strangely, the dog did not eagerly devour the ham and cheese, but instead nudged it gently with its paw, looking up at Arthur with a sense of gratitude. Sniffing the sandwich cautiously, the dog began to eat slowly, savoring each bite with visible delight. Feeling a sense of contentment, Arthur continued his walk towards the hospital. As he neared the staff entrance, he was surprised when he felt a light brush against his leg. Turning around, he saw the very dog he had fed, now trailing behind him. "Oh, so you've decided to follow me now," Arthur said with a mix of amusement and resignation. "What am I supposed to do with you?" The dog stopped, and as if understanding Arthur's words, it lowered its head and covered its eyes with its paw in a gesture so gentle and human-like that Arthur felt a pang of shame. The dog's tactfulness far exceeded his own. "I'm sorry," Arthur said, feeling a twinge of guilt. "I didn't mean to snap at you. Forgive me if I seem brusque." The dog's tail wagged slowly, as if affirming that it understood Arthur's apology and the complexities of human emotion. Arthur took a closer look at the dog, which appeared to be a mix of shepherd and stray, quite sizable, but with a coat that spoke of countless hardships. Its right ear bore a ragged tear, and the tip of its tail was missing, telling a silent story of its rough past. The dog's eyes, however, were sharp and intelligent, gazing steadily at Arthur, revealing a depth of understanding that made the man pause. "What am I going to do with you?" Arthur mused aloud, as if the dog could answer. "Bring you home. Chris would be overjoyed. But I already have my hands full, and now I'd have to care for a dog too." Sensing the gravity of its situation, the dog stood on its hind legs, letting out a soft, mournful whine that tugged at Arthur's heartstrings. "All right," Arthur conceded with a sigh. "We'll head home together tonight, but you need to wait here for me." The dog responded with an exuberant bark, bounding around Arthur with visible joy. Arthur waved his hand to indicate where the dog should wait and proceeded into the hospital. As he entered, the security guard looked up, his expression tinged with concern. "What's with that stray dog in the yard? Should I chase it off?" "No need to," Arthur replied with a reassuring smile. "It's my dog now. It seems to have taken a liking to me. I intend to bring it home." "But why would you want that scruffy dog?" the guard questioned, puzzled. "It might pose a risk to your little boy." "This dog won't bite," Arthur assured him, "and dirt can be washed off." The guard shrugged, bemused by the renowned doctor's seemingly peculiar decision, but he made no move to remove the dog from the premises. As evening approached, Arthur momentarily forgot about his new companion. But the dog did not forget him. It greeted Arthur with joyful enthusiasm, its tail wagging vigorously and its whines full of excitement. To any onlooker, it would have seemed like a heartwarming scene of a man walking his new pet. Together, man and dog set off for home, their bond already forming. The nanny was just about to leave when Arthur arrived, the key turning in the lock. The dog hesitated on the threshold, as if fearful of being rejected by its newfound happiness. Its eyes seemed to silently plead, "What if they don't want me?" "Come in," Arthur called gently. "Why are you just standing there?" But the dog remained rooted to the spot. The nanny, casting a disdainful glance at the dog, squeezed past it and exited, leaving the door ajar. "Dad, why are the doors open?" Chris, Arthur's 7-year-old, came running into the hallway. His eyes widened with astonishment and joy upon seeing the dog. "Is that a real dog, Dad? Did you get it for me?" "Really? What's its name? Can I pet it? Dog, come here." A flurry of excited questions followed. Arthur barely had a moment to respond before the dog, with gleeful barks, bounded toward Chris, showering him with affectionate licks on his cheeks and hands. It was clear that the dog had chosen its new friend, and it was not Arthur. "Pirate. I'll name you Pirate," Chris exclaimed, his laughter bubbling with pure delight. "That name suits him perfectly," Arthur said with a smile. "I hadn't thought of that. But Chris, you'll need to help take care of Pirate. You'll have to feed him, wash him, brush him, walk him, and teach him commands." Chris's eyes sparkled with happiness, as if his greatest dream had just come true. "I'll help. He's my friend," he declared enthusiastically. As anticipated, Arthur found himself with more responsibilities. The rest of the evening was spent bathing and grooming Pirate to make him look presentable. After the grooming session, the trio settled down for dinner. Arthur and Chris enjoyed soup prepared by the nanny, while Pirate happily devoured a generous serving of beef stew. When bedtime came, Pirate was given a mat and an old jacket of Arthur's to sleep on. "You'll stay in the corridor for now," Arthur instructed Pirate. "We'll get you checked up, and then you can keep watch over Chris's bed. Understand?" Pirate seemed to comprehend, resting his head on his paws and staying put throughout the night. Even a solitary night in the corridor was a pinnacle of happiness for him. What more could a former stray dog wish for than food, shelter, and kind-hearted owners? The following day, Arthur was granted a day off. After sending Chris to school, he decided to take Pirate for a walk. The dog bounded ahead energetically, leading Arthur into a small grove near their residential complex. Soon the river appeared, its gentle waves caressing the shore. The soothing sound of water and the familiar scenery always brought calm to Arthur, a place where he had once strolled with his late wife. Nostalgia washed over him as he recalled buying fresh milk from a nearby village farm when Chris was younger. Driven by a sudden craving for the fresh milk of yesteryears, Arthur decided to head to the village. As they approached, Pirate, who had been running ahead, suddenly stopped and fixated on something in the distance. With a loud bark, the dog darted towards the riverbank, which was overgrown with reeds. Arthur initially thought Pirate had spotted a duck, so he didn't rush to follow. However, Pirate raced back to Arthur, circling him and barking frantically, trying to guide him. Intrigued by the dog's unusual behavior, Arthur followed Pirate to the river's edge, where he spotted a peculiar object resembling a thick log. The object bobbed at the water's edge, and Pirate barked and whimpered anxiously as if sensing something amiss. Arthur quickened his stride, his heart pounding with a mix of urgency and dread. "Pirate, no," he cried out, desperation seeping into his voice as he dashed forward, his concern for his friend overwhelming. But Pirate, driven by an inexplicable impulse, bolted down the riverbank, vanishing into the distance. When Arthur reached the river's edge and parted the thick reeds, a jolt of sheer horror gripped him. Before him lay a coffin, an unadorned, stark vessel, devoid of any lining or decoration. Such coffins were typically reserved for the destitute, those who had nothing. The sight was jarring and incongruous. It seemed improbable that such a grim object would be displaced from a village and end up here. "What madness is this?" Arthur murmured, his voice trembling with disbelief. Who would discard a coffin like this? Despite Arthur's attempts to calm himself, Pirate had plunged into the water, his claws scraping at the coffin's grim exterior. Arthur's anxiety mounted. He dreaded the thought of opening the lid and uncovering what lay inside. "I hope, please let there be nobody inside. I'm relieved Chris isn't here," he spoke aloud, knowing his son would be horrified. Summoning every ounce of bravery, Arthur finally pried open the coffin lid. It wasn't secured, it yielded to his touch. Overcoming his trepidation, he peered inside, and the sight that met his eyes was nothing short of shocking. Inside the coffin, curled up in a fetal position and hiding his face with trembling hands, was a boy. He was alive but visibly terrified, likely distressed by Pirate's barking and perhaps other unseen horrors. No one voluntarily climbs into a coffin unless driven by desperation or fear. The child appeared to be around the same age as Arthur's son, Chris, about 7 or 8 years old. His clothing was ragged, his frame frail, and his eyes were shadowed by exhaustion and anxiety. His presence evoked an overwhelming sense of compassion and concern in Arthur. What had led to this tragic scenario? The answers eluded him, and only the boy could provide them. "Hello there," Arthur said softly, his voice gentle. "How did you end up here? Did something happen? You can tell me. I want to help you get out." Arthur carefully lifted the small, delicate child, who seemed as light as air and offered no resistance. The boy looked at Pirate with a mixture of apprehension and curiosity. "Don't be afraid," Arthur reassured him. "He's a friend. His name is Pirate, and he's my son's dog." Arthur then retrieved a chocolate bar from his pocket, a small gesture of comfort he had bought for Chris. The boy's eyes lit up at the sight of the treat, and he eagerly accepted it, his fear momentarily abated. After finishing the chocolate, he patted Pirate on the head. "My name's Alex," the boy finally introduced himself, his voice barely above a whisper. "I wasn't causing trouble." "Are you sure you're not hurt? Should we call for medical help?" Arthur inquired with genuine concern. His medical instincts, honed by years of practice, assessed the boy's visible condition. Though there were no apparent injuries, Arthur knew a thorough examination was necessary to rule out internal issues. "Please, Uncle, don't call an ambulance," Alex pleaded, his voice quivering. "I'm afraid of doctors." "Are you scared of me too?" "I'm a doctor as well," Arthur said with a reassuring smile, his demeanor softening. "My name is Arthur Phillips, but you can call me Uncle Arthur." "Really? Are there doctors like you? They usually wear white coats and have stethoscopes. And they always seem to give the most painful injections, Alex responded with a hint of surprise. And you have a dog. Yes, doctors can lead ordinary lives too, Arthur chuckled, the warmth of his laughter breaking through his long-held reserve. Now, tell me everything from the beginning. Where are you from? Did anyone at home miss you? I don't have a home anymore, Alex said with a maturity beyond his years. I lived with my grandfather, and I don't have parents. I don't even have a single photo of them. My grandfather was a forest ranger, and he always took me with him. I can read animal tracks in the forest, know a hare's track from a fox's, Alex said with a hint of pride. My grandfather, Elliot, taught me that. 2 days ago, he died. The doctor said his heart couldn't take it anymore. I cried then, and I feel like crying now. Don't cry just yet, Arthur said gently, trying to offer solace. Tell me more about why your grandfather's heart failed. I'm a cardiologist, I know a thing or two about heart disease. It was those uncles, Alex began, his voice trembling with fear. They ambushed him in the forest and argued with him. I don't know what it was about, but my grandfather told me to run and lock myself in the house. When he came home, he was pale and said we'd be leaving the village. The next day he died. He fell asleep and never woke up. I tried to wake him, but he wouldn't get up. I ran to Grace, our neighbor, and she called an ambulance. I spent the night at her place. Grandfather was taken away, and Grace took me in. She baked pies, but I couldn't eat. All I wanted to do was cry. It's all right to cry, Arthur said softly, comforting the boy. I cried too when I lost my wife. Now, it's just my son Chris and me. He's in first grade. Should I take you to Grace? Where does she live? What are you talking about, Arthur? I can't go back home. The evil uncles will find me there, Alex said, his voice quivering as fear overtook him. Arthur was stunned by the depth of the boy's terror. What kind of people could drive a child to such a state? What uncles? Arthur asked, trying to remain calm. This morning, some men in black came to Grace's place and asked her questions. She refused to let them in, and I got scared and ran away. They came to our house, broke down the doors, and searched everywhere. They were like ninjas, swift and ruthless, throwing things around, breaking stuff, yelling, and threatening to chop someone's head off. I thought they'd come for me, so I hid quietly behind the stove until I escaped. Arthur's impatience grew as he struggled to comprehend the boy's story. How did you end up in a coffin? And he demanded, his voice laced with frustration. It's quite simple, Alex explained, his voice steady despite the turmoil he'd been through. Our house is right by the river. The locals made a coffin for Grandpa and propped it against the wall. I thought it would be fun to drag it to the shore and sit in it like a boat. I covered myself with the lid to feel safe, but the current took me away. And then you found me, more precisely. Pirates saved me. I'm not going back to the village. What if those black-dressed men come after me? Arthur tried to offer reassurance, though his skepticism lingered. There aren't any ninjas. You must have imagined them, probably just thieves or rowdy kids, he said, though he resolved to investigate the matter further. The thought that Alex had been abandoned to fend for himself struck him as deeply troubling. It was perplexing that no one seemed to be searching for the boy. Arthur's indignation grew. What kind of people would leave a child in such a perilous state? And what was the truth behind these so-called ninjas? He needed answers. Realizing that turning Alex over to the authorities might result in the boy being sent to an orphanage, Arthur felt a pang of compassion. Such a fate would be an unjust and cruel shock for a child who had already endured so much. He needed to offer something more humane. Listen, Alex, Arthur said gently, would you like to stay at my place for a day or two? My son is about your age, and I think you and Pirate will get along well. Alex's curiosity was piqued. Interesting. Will your son be difficult? Because I can stand up for myself. I'm already in second grade, he declared with a hint of determination. No one will hurt you, Arthur assured him with a reassuring smile. Besides, my son doesn't know how to fight. Well, that's okay. I'll teach him, Alex said resolutely, extending his small hand toward Arthur's, trusting him completely. As they entered the house, they were greeted by the flustered nanny. "You're 2 hours late," she exclaimed, her irritation palpable. Arthur started to apologize, not wanting to lose such a responsible employee. "Circumstances turned out this way, Abigail," he said, trying to explain. "And this is Alex, another addition to our household." "You mean to say I'll be taking care of 2 boys now?" "Not. We didn't agree on this," Abigail snapped, her voice laced with frustration. "But Abigail, it's only for a short while," Arthur implored. "I'll make it worth your while." "Forget it. Don't count on me anymore. I've already found another family," she said tersely, leaving without another word and leaving Arthur and Alex in stunned silence. "Did she leave because of me?" Alex asked, his voice tinged with worry. "No, of course not," Arthur reassured him, though he sighed heavily. "It seems she was looking for an excuse. When you grow up, you'll learn to understand people better." He tried to lift Alex's spirits. "Let's go get acquainted. I'll just wash Pirate's paws, and you could use a wash too." Arthur led Alex to the bathroom, providing him with a towel and soap. While Alex got settled, Arthur put on the kettle, mentally thanking Abigail for preparing a good dinner, despite her abrupt departure. He mused that people often seek better opportunities, just as fish seek deeper waters. "Dad," Chris whispered conspiratorially, tiptoeing up to Arthur. "There's someone in the bathroom. He's making a lot of noise." "That's our guest, Alex. His grandfather passed away, and Alex will be staying with us for a while." "Is that all right with you?" Arthur asked, already knowing his son's kind nature. "Of course he can stay. Maybe we'll become friends," Chris said with a smile, his heart open. "Great. Perhaps you could share some of your clothes with him. He's about your height and is 8 years old." "Sure. Let's see what we can find," Chris agreed, heading to his closet. 5 minutes later, Alex emerged in a brand new tracksuit, generously provided by Chris. "My name is Alex. Want to be friends?" he asked, extending his hand with a hopeful smile. "I'm Chris." "Are you hungry?" Chris asked, his concern evident. "Yes, my stomach's growling," Alex replied, and the boys shared a hearty laugh. After a satisfying dinner, the boys excitedly went off to play, while Arthur tidied up the kitchen, his mind swirling with thoughts of Alex's story. When he entered the children's room, he was pleasantly surprised to see how quickly Chris and Alex had bonded. They interacted as if they were longtime friends. Chris eagerly showed off his toys, generously sharing them with Alex, who seemed both amazed and delighted by the abundance. Arthur observed the joy on Alex's face, noting the lack of envy or negative feelings. It was clear that Alex was experiencing a new world of wonder and excitement. Arthur's heart ached for the boy, who had lived a life of hardship with his grandfather. "Arthur, look at the fort we built." Alex's voice rang with pride as he pointed to a makeshift shelter constructed from a blanket draped over several chairs. "Yeah, we're going to hide from ninjas in our fort," with Alex, Chris declared with a mischievous grin. Arthur smiled, his heart warmed by the sight of the boy's innocent joy. "Good job. Have fun. And after you're done playing, you can have some warm milk, and then it's off to bed," he said, though his mind was preoccupied. "Ninjas again?" The boy must have been frightened if he's still fixated on them. As the evening deepened, Arthur moved about the house, trying to keep busy. When he entered the room later, he was struck by the eerie silence. There were no sounds of laughter or play, and even Pirate lay still, snoring contentedly next to the children's fort. Arthur peered beneath the edge of the blanket and found Alex and Chris sleeping peacefully inside the cozy shelter. With gentle care, he lifted them one by one and tucked them into their beds before settling down on the couch for a well-earned rest. The coming day promised to be demanding. Morning light brought with it the mouth-watering scent of a ham omelet. For a moment, Arthur thought he might be dreaming. Had his late wife somehow returned to cook breakfast? He pinched himself to confirm he was awake. The pain was real, and so was the aroma. Arthur smacked his forehead in realization Abigail had returned. He shuffled to the kitchen, prepared to offer yet another apology. To his astonishment, the aroma didn't come from Abigail but from Alex. The boy, sporting Arthur's late wife's apron, struggled with its oversized fabric. "So, you're in charge of breakfast now?" "I thought maybe the ninjas had arrived," Arthur joked, trying to lighten the mood. "Yep. It's me," Alex replied with a grin. "I used to make breakfast for Grandpa all the time. I can smoke potatoes like you wouldn't believe." Their finger-licking good as pride was evident, and it was clear that he felt at ease and welcome in their home. Irate, wagging his tail energetically, had been treated to a sausage. Arthur's heart swelled with gratitude for this resilient boy who had endured so much. He resolved to do whatever it took to secure Alex's happiness, even considering adopting him. "Oh, this smells fantastic," Chris said as he entered the dining room. "Alex, will you teach me how to cook?" "Of course." "It's easy," Alex replied, adopting a businesslike demeanor that was both endearing and reassuring. After the satisfying breakfast perfectly cooked and delicious, Arthur prepared to visit the village. He left the boys in the care of their neighbor, Aaron. Fortunately, it was a holiday, so neither Chris nor Alex had to attend school. Dressed in an old jacket, worn jeans, and rubber boots, and accompanied by Pirate, Arthur set out to blend into the village environment and uncover more about Grandfather Elliot and Alex. He hoped to gain some insight into this troubling story. The village, with its distinct wooden houses and simple charm, soon identified Arthur as an outsider. A group of village children on bicycles trailed him. "Hey, mister, where are you from?" asked a red-haired boy with a curious gaze. "I used to visit Grandpa Elliot here many years ago," Arthur said quickly, sidestepping the question. "You probably know everyone in the village, right?" "Sure do," the boy boasted proudly. "We know every dog and person around here. Who do you want to know about?" "Well, about Grandpa Elliot and Alex," Arthur replied. "Grandpa passed away recently," the boy informed him. "We weren't close with Alex. He was a bit of a loner. He didn't join in our games or mischief. He just wandered the woods with the old man. We called him the forest spirit. You should talk to Mr. Riddle. He used to visit Grandpa often. He might know something. He's the chairman." "Thank you," Arthur said, feeling a pang of sympathy for Alex, who had been an outsider. How did he manage to survive here amidst such indifference? Arthur's determination to support Alex grew stronger. The village council's brick building stood out among the wooden structures, marking its importance. Inside, Mr. Riddle sat in a modest office but was dressed in a sharp suit. A gold watch glinted on his wrist, starkly contrasting the village's rustic backdrop. The keys to a Mercedes with a gold-plated fob were prominently displayed on his desk. Arthur felt a twinge of unease but maintained his composure. Mr. Riddle's demeanor shifted slightly as he noticed Arthur. What could he be hiding? Arthur wondered. Aloud, he said, "Hello, Mr. Riddle. My name is Arthur. You probably don't remember me." Mr. Riddle scrutinized Arthur's face for a moment before responding, "I don't recall. What's the matter?" "Nothing urgent," Arthur reassured him. "I'm just looking for my distant relative, Old Man Elliot. I heard he was living with a young boy. I thought I'd visit familiar places from my childhood and check in." "He passed away 2 days ago, Mr. Riddle said, narrowing his eyes. "You're a bit late. "When was the funeral?" Arthur asked. "It was this morning, mister," Riddle replied. "He was laid to rest with all due respect. Relatives came from the city." Arthur's mind raced as he absorbed Grace's revelations. The situation was more tangled and dangerous than he'd anticipated. If Alex wasn't truly Grandpa Elliot's grandson, then who was he? And why were there people willing to resort to violence to find him? This new information painted a picture of an innocent child caught in a web of danger and deceit. As Grace recounted the details, Arthur's resolve hardened. Alex was clearly in grave danger, and Mr. Riddle's evasiveness and the swift burial of Grandpa Elliot pointed to a deeper conspiracy. Arthur was determined to protect the boy and uncover the truth, no matter the risk. The drunken man's sudden entrance disrupted his thoughts. He looked rough and unkempt, his disheveled appearance a stark contrast to the tidy, albeit modest, interior of Grace's home. The man's aggressive demeanor and the mention of drinking buddies made Arthur's instincts flare with caution. "Grace, who is this man?" Arthur asked, trying to keep his voice calm but firm. Grace's face turned pale as she replied, "This is Mikhail. He's not the type to visit neighbors, especially not under these circumstances." Mikhail's eyes shifted to Arthur, narrowing with suspicion. "So you're the one who fixed the fence, huh? What's your business here?" Arthur stood up, trying to gauge the man's intentions. "I'm just a visitor, helping out where I can. I'm looking into some old family matters related to Grandpa Elliot and his ward, Alex." Mikhail's expression darkened, and he took a menacing step closer to Arthur. "Old family matters, you say? You'd best leave those matters alone. They don't concern you." Grace's eyes flicked nervously between the two men. "Mikhail, please, he's just helping out. Let him be." Arthur, sensing the escalating tension, knew he had to handle this carefully. "I'm just here to help," he said, maintaining a non-threatening stance. "I'll be leaving soon, but if you know anything about Alex or what happened to Grandpa Elliot, I'd appreciate any information you can share." Mikhail's eyes remained cold. "You've already meddled too much. Best not to pry any further. Now, if you don't mind, I have other matters to attend to." With that, Mikhail turned and stumbled out the door, leaving a heavy silence in his wake. Grace, visibly shaken, closed the door and locked it. She took a deep breath, trying to regain her composure. "I'm sorry about that," Grace said quietly. "Mikhail is not someone you want to cross. He's involved in some dangerous business, and his presence here is never a good sign." Arthur nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "Thank you for your honesty. I'll be careful." He made to leave but paused, glancing at Grace with concern. "You mentioned Alex disappeared after those people visited. Do you have any idea where he might have gone or who might be after him?" Grace shook her head. "I don't know where he might be. But those men were looking for something in Grandpa's house. Whatever it was, it must have been very important." Arthur's mind churned with possibilities. The key to understanding why Alex was in danger might lie in the secrets of Grandpa Elliot's house. "I'll check the house myself. If you hear or see anything unusual, please let me know immediately." Grace nodded. "I will. Be careful." Arthur thanked Grace for her help and set off towards the village, determined to uncover the truth and ensure Alex's safety. The mystery of why the boy was targeted and what secrets Grandpa Elliot's house held would have to be solved quickly before it was too late. As Arthur approached the old, decrepit house, the setting sun cast long shadows across the yard. He could see the house's once proud structure now standing in disrepair, its windows dark and unwelcoming. With a deep breath, Arthur steeled himself for what he might uncover. He had to act swiftly and discreetly to protect Alex and get to the bottom of this tangled mess. "Greetings," Arthur attempted to be courteous, though his gesture of civility seemed to evaporate into the air, unnoticed. "What on earth are you doing here?" Peter's voice thundered with unrestrained fury. "Do you think just because a woman has been through a divorce, she can casually invite a lover into her home?" His anger descended upon Arthur like a storm. "Look at you, settling in with the arrogance of a prince. Do you have any idea who I am? I'm a simple farmer," he declared with an almost defiant pride, his chest puffing out with self-importance. "Peter, control yourself. He's not what you think," Grace intervened sternly. "We've been separated for 2 years. Don't come here. I don't even want your alimony." "Don't you dare forget that you're still my wife," Peter roared, his voice dripping with venom. "He needs to leave now, and I'll deal with you. You'll learn what it means to bring other men into our home, you entitled." "I'll leave when I choose," Arthur responded with a calm determination. "And Grace is not your property. Get it through your head. You've been told." Grace shot a look of scorn at Peter, and Arthur, ever observant, noticed the silent plea for help in her gaze. His sense of chivalry and compassion could not stand by while a woman faced such distress, especially someone as gentle and endearing as Grace. "Shall we step outside?" Peter demanded, his voice vibrating with aggression. "Since you don't understand the reason, let's settle this outside." Arthur's lips curled into a confident smirk. His military training had instilled in him a steady assurance. The moment they stepped outside, Peter seized a crowbar with an almost frantic energy. It was as though he was channeling all his anger into this weapon. With an effortless flick, Arthur disarmed Peter, sending the tool skidding across the ground. In a swift, practiced move, Arthur swept the farmer off his feet. Peter crashed face first into the muck, his furious howls resonating through the air. He charged again, only to be effortlessly tossed aside by Arthur's skilled maneuvers. The cycle continued. Peter attacked with renewed zeal, and Arthur countered with a fresh technique each time. Peter's growls and flailing attempts to retaliate were in vain as Grace held him back by the collar, her grip firm. The commotion drew a crowd from the village, many of whom found the scene both shocking and gratifying. They had long despised Peter's bullying ways, and witnessing his comeuppance was like a balm to their collective souls. The boys, in particular, cheered and clapped with unrestrained enthusiasm. When an exhausted Peter, cursing under his breath, retreated to his tractor and sped off in a huff, the children flocked around Arthur. "Uncle, show us those moves." "Uncle, where did you come from?" they implored, their eyes wide with admiration. "Join the army, boys, and they'll teach you all the tricks," Arthur replied with a weary smile, catching Grace's gaze. Her eyes, previously clouded with despair, now gleamed with pride. No one had ever stood up for her like this before. After her separation from Peter, she had harbored a deep disdain for men. But seeing Arthur's valor and strength made her realize that there were still noble and honorable men in the world. Her past misfortune had blinded her to this truth. Arthur returned inside the house, and Grace set about preparing the kitchen, setting the table with a newfound sense of hope. A little girl, no older than 5, was already seated there. "What's your name, little one?" Arthur asked gently. "I'm Lucy," she said shyly, "and Mom said your name is Uncle Arthur." "Did you hurt my dad?" Her question was direct and serious. "I had to," Arthur answered softly, his heart aching for the child. "I'm sorry it had to come to that." "That's what he deserves," Lucy stated with surprising maturity. "He hurt Mom and me too," she said, pointing to her head and back. Arthur's heart sank at the revelation. The thought of anyone inflicting harm on a woman or a child was almost unbearable. One thought crystallized in his mind. "Grace," he said, dropping the formalities, "given what's happened, you and Lucy should think about moving to the city. Peter might not stop, he could even become violent." "And what did you study for, anyway?" "Oh, that was a long time ago," Grace replied, her voice tinged with a hint of nostalgia. "I trained to be a veterinarian, and I excelled in my studies." After a pause, she added, "Now we're truly in a bind. Everyone's terrified of him. They won't even approach me because they don't want to face his wrath. I considered begging him for help, what a thought. But I know that's not an option. I would have left this place a long time ago, but where could I go?" Grace's voice was laced with desperation. "I have no extra money and no connections in the city." Arthur, with a reassuring tone, responded, "Why not come to my place? You can move in whenever you're ready, even right now if you wish. I can help you find a job. I'm a doctor, and I have friends who are veterinarians as well. What do you think?" Grace's face reflected her apprehension. "I'm scared to just abandon everything," she admitted, her voice trembling. "Don't let fear hold you back," Arthur encouraged. "I'm offering you genuine help. You can stay in my house as long as you need. And to reassure you, I'll let you in on a secret. Alex, who knows you, is living with me, and you're familiar with him as well. Plus, I have a son named Chris and a dog named Pirate." Grace considered his offer thoughtfully. After a moment of contemplation, she nodded. "I'll give your proposal serious thought, but for now I need to sort out my affairs." As Arthur prepared to head home, Grace's anxiety led her to pack a variety of food items for him: a large jar of milk, a generous piece of butter, sour cream, and cottage cheese. She placed them all in a large basket, topping it with a mound of fresh bread. Though Arthur initially protested, he accepted the basket out of politeness. In gratitude for his assistance, he left some money for Grace. She hesitated at first, but eventually accepted the offer. The depth of her gratitude was palpable. It was the first time someone had extended such kindness to her. Meeting someone like Arthur was a breath of fresh air in her troubled life. As Arthur left, Lucy waved goodbye, her small hand fluttering in a cheerful farewell. Arthur's heart was warmed by the knowledge that he had made a significant difference in someone's life. However, the situation took a surprising turn. The mayor had agreed to the terms, but things went awry. While hiding in the woods, they lost the boy they were protecting. They had left the child's basket under a bush and ventured off, hoping to find fortune. Upon returning, they could not locate the spot where they had left the child. It was a fortunate twist of fate that an old man found the boy. "Mr. Lloyd," with a satisfied air, concluded the story. "Wow, what an unexpected twist," Arthur exclaimed, astonished. "Does the mayor know about his son?" "Not yet, Mr. Lloyd responded. "I wanted to discuss it with you first. We're about to visit him together." Mayor Anthony Miller, known for his integrity and honesty, had recently assumed office. Despite facing numerous dishonest proposals, he had steadfastly rejected them. When informed that a doctor and a policeman wanted to meet with him, he was visibly intrigued. "Good day," Mayor Miller greeted as they entered his office. "What brings you here?" "Hello," began Mr. Lloyd. "I've reopened the case of your son's disappearance. To be straightforward, it appears your Carl is alive. Although now, according to the documents, his name is Alex, and he is with Mr. Phillips." Mr. Lloyd added. Turning to Arthur, the policeman continued, "Arthur will provide you with the details." Arthur recounted, in vivid detail, the series of events from the day he went for a walk with his dog along the riverbank to the intricate circumstances surrounding the lost boy. His account left the shocked father in tears, overwhelmed by the emotional weight of the revelation. "Where is he?" Mayor Miller asked simply, his voice trembling. Without a word, the men rose and proceeded to Arthur's home. Upon entering the apartment, they were greeted by the aroma of fried potatoes and meat. The sight of the children eagerly devouring their meal was unexpected for Arthur. He hadn't anticipated encountering two boys of similar age, but a father's intuition quickly revealed the truth. One boy bore an unmistakable resemblance to his wife. Alex Mayor Miller called softly, "I'm your father. I've been searching for you for so long, and I finally found you." Alex, clutching his fork, looked up at the guest with a mixture of disbelief and hope. "Are you my dad?" he asked, his voice quivering. "Yes, I am," Mayor Miller affirmed, tears streaming down his face. "And you have a mother too." The father's heartfelt tears mingled with Alex's sobs as he leaped into his father's embrace. At that moment, Alex grieved for his grandfather while finding solace in the return of his father. "Let's go home," Anthony said gently to his son. Alex glanced at Arthur, who nodded encouragingly. "Go on, buddy," Arthur said, enveloping the boy in a warm hug. "Farewell." With Anthony and his son departing, Mr. Lloyd stayed behind to discuss Grace's concerns and Arthur's suspicions. He promised to take appropriate action. Well, Grace remarked, her voice tinged with a mix of relief and resignation. "Our Alex is the mayor's son. Life has its unexpected twists, and soon you'll be a veterinarian too." Arthur's face lit up with a reassuring smile. "Here's the address. They're eagerly awaiting your arrival." Later that evening, as the family gathered around the TV, breaking news interrupted the usual programming with a distressing report the mayor had been attacked. Arthur's heart sank as he rushed to the hospital, his mind racing with concern. When he arrived, the scene was tense with urgency. The surgeon, visibly exhausted, emerged from the operating room. "Arthur, we need your help urgently." "The bullet grazed the mayor's heart," the surgeon said, his voice strained. Without hesitation, Arthur dashed to the operating room. His skilled hands worked diligently, and despite the dire situation, he managed to stabilize Anthony. However, a rare blood type was required for the mayor's recovery, and it wasn't available in the hospital's reserves. "I can help. I have the same blood type," Arthur offered resolutely. "Remarkable," the surgeon noted, a glimmer of curiosity in his eyes. "You bear a striking resemblance to the mayor. Perhaps you're distant relatives. Let's check it out." The following day, Anthony's condition improved and he was able to speak. Arthur received the news that DNA testing had confirmed a blood relationship between them. They were indeed brothers. They had been separated as infants and placed into different foster families. Anthony, now aware of this revelation, greeted Arthur with a profound sense of connection. "Well, hello, brother," Anthony said warmly as Arthur entered his hospital room. "I'm so glad I'm not alone anymore. It feels like fate brought you to me. You found Alex, saved me, and now I discover you're my brother." "I'm glad too," Arthur replied with a gentle smile. "But you need to take it easy for now. Don't stress too much. Once you're stronger, we'll have endless conversations and we'll visit the village where Alex lived with his grandfather. The beauty of that place is something you'll cherish. But for now, focus on resting." Arthur left the hospital, and an hour later, Mr. Lloyd informed him that the masterminds behind the heinous plot had been apprehended and would face justice. Alongside them, Farmer Peter Moss and the chairman, who had been complicit in the scheme, would also be held accountable. 3 days later, the corrupt chief physician was removed from his position. That evening, Arthur's colleagues celebrated his well-deserved promotion to the head doctor of the city hospital. A month passed, and as the painful memories of recent events began to fade, two families gathered at a charming country house, now lovingly referred to as Grandpa Elliot's cottage. Alex, Chris, and Lucy were busy playing in the yard, their laughter filling the air, while the adults prepared the table for a festive meal. As Grace opened the bread box, she was surprised to find a red velvet box inside, containing an engagement ring. She turned around, her heart racing. "Will you marry me?" Arthur's voice was steady, filled with genuine affection. "Yes, I will," Grace replied, her eyes sparkling with joy. Laughter erupted as it became clear that everyone except Grace had been in on the surprise. The guests applauded and congratulated the newly engaged couple with enthusiasm. Grace approached Chris, who looked at her with admiration. "Do you want to be my son?" "I promise to love you very, very much," she said, her voice tender. "Okay, Mom," Chris responded, embracing her with a heartfelt hug. In the tranquil glow of the evening, the family gathered together, cherishing the happiness that had finally graced their lives. In that serene moment, they were all too aware of the fragility of their newfound joy and wished to savor every second of it. As we wrap up today's story, we've witnessed a powerful journey of resilience, transformation, and connection. From Arthur's selfless acts of bravery to the heartwarming reunion of long-lost siblings, this tale has touched on themes of kindness, family, and hope. We've seen how unexpected events can lead to profound revelations and new beginnings. Now, we'd love to hear from you. What lessons have you taken away from this story? Is there one particular insight or message that you plan to bring into your own life? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Your reflections could inspire others and foster a meaningful conversation within our community. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment, like, share, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more inspiring content. Your support helps us continue bringing you stories that uplift and connect us all. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to reading your comments.